1 month ago, on April 20th, Washington became the 23rd state in the Union to abolish capital punishment. A great day for U.S. legislation and stoners who hate killing people. But the anti-death penalty movement is nothing new. Michigan became the first state to ban capital punishment in 1846, and a few years later, Rhode Island and Wisconsin would follow suit. By the end of the 19th century, other countries around the world would start to take a little inspiration from their American idols. Venezuela, Costa Rica, Brazil, Portugal, the Netherlands, and Ecuador would also ban capital punishment. So what caused these people to abandon their past in the first place? First, we need to look at the US states that didn't ban the death penalty, which to this day is still most of them. Throughout the 19th century, these states actually made more crimes capital offenses, especially those committed by slaves. Lynching, a campaign of terror perpetrated on Black Americans by white supremacists, though deemed illegal by the law, was often done with the implied consent or even active endorsement and participation by the police. Federal and state rules didn't matter. White supremacy was the law. Just like the famous public hangings you'd see in Pirates of the Caribbean, lynching was meant to be seen by others, to entertain those who claim to value justice, and to strike fear into the hearts of those who might be next. All kinds of public executions outside of lynching were performed for decades into the 20th century, the last one being Rainy Beefy, whose executioner was drunk in 1936. Public executions did not deter crime like many had thought and claimed. This belief can be traced back to Dr. Benjamin Rush, a signer of the Declaration of Independence. In fact, he believed that capital punishment in the justice system not only didn't deter crime, but actually increased it. He even gained the support of Benjamin Franklin in his writing. But with the turn of the 20th century, people not only started questioning the efficacy of the death penalty, but its humanity and morality as well. Have you ever seen an Iron Maiden before? You know, those big spooky closet with the spikes on the inside, touted to be a medieval torture device. You're not supposed to think too hard about it. Just about how barbaric people used to be and how you're so glad that we aren't like that anymore. But is that really true? The electric chair was introduced in 1888, claimed to be the new, humane form of execution, but that wasn't true either. There are multiple records of the shocks not killing people instantly like they're supposed to, of people's heads catching fire, their skin smoking and bubbling while people watch from behind a window. Cyanide gas chambers, introduced in 1924, left people gasping and choking for hours, banging their heads against the walls, hoping that would kill them sooner. Finally, in 1977, the lethal injection began its time on death row, created by one J. Chapman, who, by the way, wasn't even a doctor. Claimed to be a painless and quick shot that put its recipient to sleep, not unlike putting down a dog that bit its owner. But again, this flawless and perfect form of execution was indeed not perfect, leaving its victims having seizures, heart attacks, convulsing, all while still being fully awake. And these side effects still occur to this day. The Iron Maiden isn't real. It was never used by anybody to torture or execute anyone. It was a sculpture created by museum curators to bring in paying customers, and it worked. But knowing this, let me raise you one. Humane execution isn't real. There is no way for the government to take an unwilling participant, end their life, and then claim it was pure and enlightened. The search for the right way to carry out capital punishment is just as fruitless as it is a lie. It is only a tool that the state uses to maintain power over its people. 20 of the people that have been executed by the United States in the past 50 years have later shown strong evidence to be innocent. And that's only the people we know of. The risk of innocent and painful deaths is much too high with the death penalty for it to be worth it, whatever that even means. Now, my proposal would be to take this to the Supreme Court. Again, But I don't even know how this Supreme Court thing even really works fully, and I'm not really dressed right. But I want to do this properly, so let's go get ready. This was all I had. Look, if we're going to take this to the Supreme Court, there's a couple things that we would need to make clear to them. Personally, I believe that it would be correct for them to interpret the death penalty as cruel and unusual punishment under the Eighth Amendment. It's their job to interpret the Constitution in order to pass laws, right? But then after that, it'll need to be ratified into federal law, so there's no chance of it being reversed. And we all know how that goes. I need to get more formal clothes. Be right back. Oh, I know I clean up good. No need to flatter me. This definitely isn't my brother's dress shirt. Anyways, if you are at all interested in joining the fight on state-mandated punishment, there are multiple charities to donate to and even just resources to look at. There is the American Bar Association itself, actually, is currently working on a project where they are recruiting pro bono attorneys to help prisoners on death row in court. There is the Center for Wrongful Convictions. They catalog every time a miscarriage of justice has been served in a capital case. There is the Innocence Project. They have a newsletter you can subscribe to. They work on acquitting death row prisoners that have a high probability of innocence. And of course, there is always the Southern Center for Human Rights, which is a great place for prison reform and legal advocacy resources. That was a lot, and there's way more you can look at too. I recommend for anything related to capital punishment or the death penalty, anything at all, this place has everything. It's deathpenaltyinfo.org. That's deathpenaltyinfo.org. Thank you for taking the time to watch and listen to me today and just learn something new. I'm Ruby O'Keefe, and I'll see you in court.